Hi, friends. This is Wendy Harrop, and welcome to the Say Yes to Yourself podcast. On the Say Yes to Yourself podcast, you'll hear stories from women just like us who are adding the practice of saying yes in their daily lives in big and small ways, and as a result, are experiencing the truth that everybody wins when you say yes to yourself. Saying yes to yourself is a graceful unfolding, an intentional becoming of the very best version of you. It is my hope that in these conversations, we are able to find our truth and be inspired and empowered to live our very best lives. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you, and I look forward to finding a bit of our own story in each other's. Hello, friend. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so delighted to have you here. I am just twirling around in my peony bliss. We are almost at the end of this highly anticipated yet short-lived peony season. It's just so fun. I love them so much. And as you know, my mantra for 2025 is let it be easy. And besides this podcast, the peonies are such a beautiful picture of that, especially in comparison to their sisters, the diva dahlias. Oh my word. Okay, so as much as I have been twirling around in peony bliss, I have been bending over in back-tiring labor planting my dahlias. They are a labor of love. I love having them because they're beautiful and they're just not common here on the East Coast, mainly because they are not hardy enough to winter over. So they have to be dug out every year. So what the practice typically is after the first frost in mid-October, the plants die. I cut them down to the ground level, about 2 inches above the ground, and then I dig out these tubers, put them in a plastic bag, and store them for the winter, fingers crossed. This storage process has brought great success, whether it is a nice, hydrating, wet season or a super dry one like last year was. I wasn't sure when I dug all these out if they were even going to survive, but they did. Yay! She says with a little bit of hesitation because it's a lot of work. So what I typically do in the spring is divide them and then plant each of the divided tubers. So the year that I dug out 200, then the next year I planted 750. Last year, I left a lot of them in the ground to practice a method that someone sent me as an option that is in Colorado, where you leave them in the ground with quite a bit of leaf mulch to insulate them. And then they just come back. And wouldn't that be great without having to dig them out and store them and then divide them and then replant them? Well, that didn't really work. So I am in the midst of planting 310 dahlias into the ground. And I have also decided this year to not divide them. So because, oh my gosh, do I really need 1,500 dahlias? Good night. Okay, so why do I tell you all of that? Well, maybe 3 of you are interested in the process. But the rest of you, I say all of that to remind you and myself that we get to course correct and we get to do what delights us and we get to make changes and decide. So I've decided not to divide my dahlias and I'm planting them as full plants. I don't know what's going to happen next. It will be a graceful unfolding. We will find out together. But that's what's been filling my days. So it's what's filling my thoughts and it's filling my words. And now it's filling your ears. See how that goes? So hopefully far more interesting than how I spend my days. is this beautiful conversation with today's guest, Lynda Cash. She has over 16 years of clinical experience as a marriage and family therapist. She's worked with individuals, couples, and families to gain insight and understanding regarding unhealthy and dysfunctional behavioral life patterns, helping her clients overcome challenges with managing their spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, and financial well being. Lynda is specialized in assisting clients with preventative, motivational, and management strategies to help establish and maintain healthy and fulfilling lifestyles. She strives to create a safe and nurturing atmosphere where clients can feel supported in their efforts to grow with change and become reconnected to their strengths and life goals. I hope you find this conversation incredibly helpful. Please enjoy Lynda Cash. Lynda, I am so delighted to have you. I'm really eager to dive into this conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, Wendy, thank you so much for having me. This is a great honor to be on your show. So I really, really appreciate this.
Thank you. It is one of it is the most fun of all the fun and fabulous things that I do is this podcast. So I am delighted to share the time and the energy and the space with fabulous women that are also up to great things in the world.
Oh, that. Thank you.
Yes, my pleasure. So let's just dive right in. How are you saying yes to yourself in this season?
Well, I had a chance to reflect on what type of mindset or mindsets I'd like to lead off on in 2025. And, just thinking about all the things that are working for me sounded like a good place to start. So that's what I've been focusing on, gratification in 2025, paying attention to all the positive aspects of my life, being a mature woman in age. I've been around the sun a few times, but just being very grateful about being in good health, being in my right mind. I have full activity of my limbs. I have great supportive people in my life. So I have great clients. I love my career, love my neighborhood, my community. So I have so many positive things working. I like to lead off with those kind of mindsets. 2025. And I usually do it anyway. But in these times that we're dealing with right now, it just seems like a much better strategy for life. So that's
For
the
sure.
one that I'm choosing for 2025. Focus on what's working.
I love that so much. Now, you mentioned clients. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what a passion project has been birthed from that.
Well, April will be my 17th year working as a marriage and family therapist, which is a career that I definitely have a loving passion for. I say that I do have a genuine love for people. So I think I'm in the right place at this time of my life. And as a result of me working in this field, working with numerous families, couples, individuals, and groups, I've encountered certain relational histories from my clientele that led me to writing my latest book. It's called Reintroduce Yourself. The reason that I wrote this book is because I realized that there are extreme needs for individuals to gain more strategies and skills when it comes to establishing healthy relationships in this relational climate that we're living in today.
I love that so much. And I love even just the title of the book, To Reintroduce Yourself, starts with some deep reflection on your own part, because we get in these habits of, someone says, they meet you at a party or at the airport. I love to travel, so I'm always thinking of, oh, wouldn't this be fun if I was sitting on the plane to Paris next to this person? And what would we talk about?
Hmm.
And oftentimes we go into this almost rehearsed, unconscious spiel of who we are, where we were raised, what, you know, trauma or drama has informed our choices, or what,
Yes.
what have we just escaped from or something. And I love that idea, and I can't wait to hear more of even reintroducing myself to me. And who am I? Where am I going? I often say, as during this podcast, that I'm I'm recording so many episodes in a day that I love that I am not the same person on Thursday afternoons that I am on Thursday mornings when I start having these beautiful, expansive conversations. So I would have to rewrite my Instagram bio every week if I was keeping up with the actual evolution of my character.
Yes, yes, indeed. And so part of my intake process, I usually have a client share their backstory with me. Well, not usually, they all do, all those that are willing to. But I get to assess your communication style during that process. And that's something that I pay attention to, what your relational modeling was, how you communicate, and how you introduce yourself. So just hearing these relational components when I'm doing this assessment here, I get to get a better understanding of how a person views themselves, views the world, and views other people based off of their relational histories. And so sometimes the initial introduction of yourself when you're seeking a relational experience may have something to do with the outcome of your relationship. So what I've
Mhm.
realized after working with a variety of individuals over the years is that there's usually three areas of concern that individuals are not necessarily focusing on after they establish a relationship. And those are the areas that I focus on in this book. And we call those the three relational deal breakers. And so those deal breakers encompass what are your emotional needs would be the first deal breaker. The
Mhm.
second one would be the wants, and that's in regards to what type of quality of life you would like to experience in your relationship. And then the likes, whether or not you have things in common, the person that you're entering the relationship with. So those are the core elements that really affect your relational experience. I call the emotional component, that's the first deal breaker. I call that the fuel of the relationship, the emotional fuel, that's the payoff for being in a relationship. The wants, I consider that as the meat, the whole focus of the relationship. Now I've made a choice to participate in a relationship with a life partner. Now we have to establish a life together. So that's the wants. We have to make sure that we're both on point, on the same page, because relationships typically don't have expiration dates. So you may be investing a lot of time, money, energy, a lot of insight, creativity, and skills into your relationship. So you want to make sure that you protect that part of your relationship. That's very important. So when that portion of your relationship is out of line, for some individuals, that can become one of their deal breakers. And then the third deal breaker, that's the likes, working with individuals and hearing some of their backstories or their relational issues. It's not uncommon to pinpoint where there are other areas of concern. And that's usually when it comes to compatibility, not having enough in common or not exploring new things that could possibly bring some commonality into the relationship. So those are just some of the areas that I encourage couples, families, friends to focus on. The relationship is starting to get a little stagnant, or maybe if there's some emotional distance or some conflicts, just going back to these three deal breakers first and doing your own assessment to see whether or not those are areas of concern.
Wow. Okay. I have so many questions. I'm really glad you wrote a book. How do we do that? So let's say we're in midlife now and we've had this relationship for a couple of decades. The kids are off to college now, and perhaps we're realizing, oh gosh, I enjoyed the distraction of my children. I enjoyed being needed. I enjoyed the distraction of my children. And now I'm realizing that I'm, in a relationship with somebody who feels like a stranger. And yeah, I have a lot of this. That was not my experience. So I'm not asking for a friend, quote unquote, but I want to, I'm really interested to hear your thoughts and what your experience has been with the couples that you counsel.
Okay.
How do we do this?
Well, it's couples, families, and it's friends too. So it's not just for couples, but the majority of my work does revolve work with couples. So that's where it really horns in on it, definitely for couples. But when it comes to explaining how to utilize this book as a tool, one of the things I do is kind of break down the components of the deal breakers first. So just explaining a little bit more about what emotional needs are, so an individual can kind of get an idea of how do I do my own assessment. So when you're considering your emotional needs, you want to think about things that are personal to you. Intimacy, that's you knowing that someone is into you because you can see it. Into me, I need to see. So these are personal needs. So if you're in a relationship with a life partner, someone you want to marry, you want to think about what kind of experiences do I want to have with this person individually. So that would include maybe having someone that's there to acknowledge you every day, or to celebrate you, or encourage you, or to ally for you. Of course, intimacy is a part of that. You want to make sure that you have a partner that is sexually compatible with you. So those are things that are pertaining to you. This is the reason that I'm interested in finding a partner, because I'd like for those experiences to occur specifically for me. So that's an intimate need. And that's in all relationships. If you're in a family, you have emotional needs from parents, siblings. If there's extended family in the home, you would still have some type of emotional need. That would be to be acknowledged or celebrated, or to ally or supported or encouraged, even from family members. If it's a best friend or a coworker, it's the same thing. You still are seeking those kind of things in your relationships, minus maybe the sexual component with family or friends or coworkers, but the rest of the components are usually there. So that's the first thing, is getting individuals to understand, well, what are my emotional needs? How do I communicate? Well, you have to take time out and really assess where you're at today, especially with couples that have been together for a while. Sometimes I work with couples who were dating since they were teenagers, and now they're adults. They have only assessed, their commonalities, their needs from their kids. Now they're adults. They have completely, a new set of needs. So you have to do check-ins. And this is kind of a tool to help you do this check-in. So that's the first thing there. And when it comes to the wants, I call that the meat. That's where you really want to get excited about your relationships, because now you get to customize, your quality of life with this particular person. So you want to have a conversation about the wants. How do we want to live? Where do we want to live? Do we want children? How many children do we want to have? How do we handle finances? How are we going to handle family and friends? How do we celebrate each other on special occasions, holidays? Do we travel? What type of travel? Going to be a 5-star family, or going to be 3-star? All these conversations, these are things that I encourage couples to focus on early on. You want to kind of get a better understanding of what you're co-signing on in your relationship. So that's where the 3 deal breaker conversation comes into play. So you can be aware of what your expectations are if you're moving forward in a relationship. And then you can be more aware of what your obligations in the relationship, because you have to have both of those in a relationship. Somebody is expecting something from you, that's your obligation. And you expecting something from them, that's your expectation. So you have to have that going on. So that's the second part. The first part is the emotional needs, that I call that the fuel. The wants, that's the meat. That's the whole purpose. That's why I'm here. But we've got to have something else, a little spice. I call that the glue. And we call that your likes. Well, what do we have in common? Because yes, you're meeting my emotional needs. We have things to do, but it still can get pretty old and boring. we need some spice in this relationship. So if you're a couple, I encourage, that you explore new things with your life partner. Make sure you're going on dates, meeting new people, traveling different places, or taking up hobbies or different things together, just so you can have more things in common. Because it's not uncommon for couples to start off in the beginning, spending a lot of time together, but afterwards, after building a life together, the wants overtakes the relationship in general. So that particular part usually has a tendency to fall off. There's not enough emphasis on one-on-one quality time and building more common interests together with a life partner or even with a family. You need to make sure that there are things that you're participating in that will allow you to be able to grow together and keep things more interesting. Because in the world that we live in today, we have so many distractions, so many things that we could be tempted to be drawn towards that will pull us away from relationships. So relationships, yes, there are things that we have to do that would be considered as work, but it's good work. It's not something that is negative. It's something that I think would benefit your quality of life if you have the tools and you kind of know how to utilize those tools. It can really, really, really enhance your quality of life in all your relationships.
Thank you for that. And how would you suggest if, again, you're not starting a relationship with a person, but you're kind of restarting a new relationship with the old person because the dynamics in your home have changed, or you've decided, this relationship is over. Are you interested in starting a new one where we get to know each other again? And, I feel like that there needs to be these check-ins, but
Yes.
sometimes there needs to be complete reinventions.
Yes.
And if both people are on board, we can reinvent something that's fabulous and dynamic and going to meet all of our needs. And if one of us is not on board, then we've got some decisions to make.
Wendy, you said the magic word. Okay. That's the first thing that I lead off on. Who's motivated? I need motivated people.
That's
Because this
right.
will not work without having at least two motivated people. Now, the way you utilize this book, you have to do interviews, similar to what I'm doing here. So I would ask in therapy, but outside of therapy, if it's a couple, I would have them set up maybe a date night, some places they've never been before, and have them conduct these interviews. Okay, so the interview would be first they have to do their own internal interviewing of themselves and really get in tune with maybe what's not working in a relationship. You don't talk about that. Okay, we don't bring that in. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about why you don't lead off with what you don't want.
As a rule, yes, please talk about that.
But really taking time out to think about if you had the relationship of your dreams, what would that look like on an emotional level first? You have to get in tune with it first so that you can communicate it to your partner or your family here. So that's the first part, is to really ask yourself, if I could have a relationship that I wanted, what would it look like now? And the same thing when it comes to the quality of life. You pay attention to your daily living experience and you ask yourself what's not working, but that's not what you bring up when you're having the conversation with your partner or with your family or your friends. That's just for you to use as a guide to focus on what you do want. So if there are things in your life that you wish were different as far as your daily living experience, maybe you would like to enjoy having dinners together. Maybe now everybody's eating in separate locations in the home. You like to get back to doing things like that. Or maybe you're into dancing. You want to bring some life back into the household, maybe some music back in the home. Or you want to learn how to cook. Maybe you want to bring in some experiences where you two can be sous chefs together. All those kind of things, because things have changed. When you're dealing with social media, you're getting all kinds of ideas about how to live. And this is causing individuals sometimes to feel a lack of despair when they feel that that's not for them. But yes, it can be for you. You have a partner that's motivated or family that's motivated for change. You can customize any type of lifestyle you want. So these are the things that I encourage couples, families, and individuals to do. Get excited about this reintroduction because now we get a chance to influence this change. So you're going to think about your quality of life too. The first thoughts were about your personal needs. This is what I need from my life partner. Now I want to think about how we can live or what we can do to restructure our lives. Then the last part would be me focusing on the other areas, the intimacy, things that have gone stale. Maybe we haven't been on dates in a long time. I want to get back out there doing those kind of things. Okay, so we start to have couples and families start to think about, what type of new experiences would you like to explore? And how you like to explore them. It's not uncommon where, especially with couples, I would get someone who would say, hey, well, I would like the other person to initiate more of the date night or more of the activities here or show more interest in, interactions here. So that's part of this experience. Getting an individual who may be a little passive about maybe contributing to conversations. And sometimes that's the spouse, the husband's not necessarily feeling motivated or comfortable with interjecting change or new likes. So just encouraging those that may have been passive to be okay with being more assertive and speaking up this time. Because again, relationships don't have expiration dates. So you want to make sure that these three components are working for you. And it just makes sense. Because if they're not working for you, then you fall into another phase of living. And I call that toleration.
Mhm.
So many people who live in toleration. That
Right.
means,
And whatever we're tolerating, we're choosing.
yes, yes. And so typically, if you're living a life of toleration, you're also living a life of resentment.
Yes, you are.
Mm-hmm. So that typically leads to some type of sabotage. And sabotage looks like all kinds of things nowadays. Usually it starts off with maybe some type of emotional outbursts or complaint. That would be the first one. Maybe some shaming, blaming, or guilting, or just complaining about the relationship. Sabotage could look like a change in behaviors, maybe a decrease in the intimacy in the relationship, or maybe a person not being as emotionally available, maybe picking up new hobbies or ways to cause distance in the relationship. Sabotage could look like a whole nother experience for someone, an affair or something to that effect, too. So you want to avoid the life of toleration so that you can avoid living a life of resentment and you can avoid having the sabotage take place in your relationship. So that's, again, one of the main reasons for utilizing these tools so that you can be more proactive. Your current relationship will help you give yourself a boost. If you haven't experienced relationships, it'll give yourself a guide. If you've been, even for widows, sometimes I work with individuals who've only been married once. They've been married since they were a teenager, been married all of their life, same person. They have no clue about dating or who they are. So they would not have a clue about how to move forward. So this would be a great tool for someone that's in that phase, or if you're going to a retirement phase. It's another population of individuals who definitely could benefit from a reintroduction. So this is a great tool for anybody that feels like they're stuck in life and just need to be revitalized, starting on a mental level, and that will help you with your communication with other people. So it becomes something that you do on a natural basis if you utilize this particular tool. Throughout all your relationships, it becomes who you are. You'll learn how to do it automatically.
It's so wonderful. And it's interesting that you mentioned the widow. I just, of course, automatically think of my mom, and she's so strong and she's so brave and she's so encouraging to other people, encouraging to me. And yet I find in this, what you mentioned, like, they don't know themselves because they've had this role. And I think society and the generation that she was born into and the conditioning of her family of origin and her long stint in church and in just all of these systems that really aren't mad at you for not having your own needs and just meeting the needs of all the people in your charge. Like, no one was mad. We as children were not saying, gosh, mom, you really, put that oxygen mask on yourself first. No, and my dad wasn't saying it, and no one at church was telling her. And now she's quote unquote alone. She's not alone, but she doesn't have this daily responsibility of somebody informing her to-do list. So she has all of this freedom, and it's beautiful and really unfamiliar. So even, to ask, and, if she's listening and I'm getting this wrong, Mom, I'm just saying this is my perception. So, but to ask, where do you want to go for dinner? Oh, I don't care, whatever you want. And like, no, but wait, but I really want to know. No, it really doesn't matter, whatever you want. Like, no, I really want to know that you have the capability to make a decision without worrying if you're going to offend me, or if I'm busy, or if I'm tired, or if I wanted pasta or whatever. It's just, we want things for other people so passionately. And I think that it's really interesting that you mentioned that, because there is this new phase of life that she's embarking on.
Mhm.
And there are some markers that I would like her to hit because I think she would be happier in the exercising of that empowerment. But I was just wondering what you're seeing in your client base, and also how would you hold space for her? Because I'm trying, as you can tell, my words are measured, not just because I know she's listening, but because can hear as I'm saying, all of this is what I want for her, because I've experienced it for myself relatively recently. And it's so empowering to have your own voice and to no longer tolerate what you're not available for. And so, yeah, there were a lot of questions in there. Take your pick.
Well, just to reintroducing yourself. So you're going to start with the introduction of yourself, and that's okay. Sometimes individuals have to go low contact or no contact to get this work done. So if you're already by yourself, then the platform's already set, because you're having a conversation with yourself first. And she's in a good space to focus on new emotional needs, because she has a relationship with herself. She can start to explore these new needs and cater to herself. Be good to yourself on an emotional level. Celebrate yourself. Acknowledge yourself. Provide yourself with your own new self-care plan, your own level of intimacy. You can do that and practice. Even if you're, okay with seeking new relationships, you want to practice now. That way, when you do meet new people, you're already in a clear understanding of what those needs are. You're much better to present yourself in that kind of way and have a better outcome. The same thing with the wants. Now she has an opportunity to customize a new lifestyle based off of what she wants, the things that she would like to do in life, her wants right now. And then exploring new things too, new likes. So she can do this as well. This will be a good start for her to reintroduce herself. And the reason I mentioned sometimes, you have to kind of go either low contact or no contact, so that you can allow the reintroduction to take place. If you don't, take time out to maybe isolate, it's a little difficult to do the reintroduction if you're surrounded by the same people. Sometimes you're not allowed to do the reintroduction. So that's why I encourage, there are times where you do need to go low contact or no contact just to do that internal work. Now, if you're in a household and you're married, no, we're not telling you to do that. But if you're recently divorced, or you're separated, or you're a widow, or you've never really been in a relationship, the beginning process does require you to go within. So it's okay. Regardless if you're in a relationship or not, you can do this here. And again, those that are by themselves, they have a better position to do the work. There's no distractions. Because even if you had one person in your life that's very comfortable with the old introduction, they may sabotage your ability to reintroduce yourself. So you have to make sure that, you have healthy boundaries when you're doing this work. There's a little work that needs to be done, but it's the payoff. It's worth it. So it's worth it to set up the base, make sure that you have the right atmosphere to do this type of work. And the reason I
Mm,
encourage you to focus on the things that you want so that you don't bring up things that you don't want back into your life.
right.
Because it's something that I realize is a major, major pattern that individuals have when seeking new relationships. Just thinking about what happened before and thinking that, okay, let me set up some boundaries early on, so that I can make sure that I don't run into the same path again. And so some of the things that they do kind of bring in the negative, the things that happened in the past that hurt or humiliated or embarrassed or were disrespectful first to see whether or not the other person that may be interested will kind of get the clue that, hey, I don't want any of this moving forward. But you bring it in a whole bag of dirt, shame, and guilt. You place it anywhere, it's going to have an effect
Right.
on the newness of anything that you try to establish moving forward. So I encourage individuals to leave that alone. You leave the
Yep.
backstory for your therapist or other people that you feel trusted to handle that type of information. But new people that you want to introduce yourself to, you don't want to bring in those type of conversations because it can change the way a person views you. Even after a positive introduction, you bring in too many negative histories, history conversations. In other words, your backstory, if it's a little too complicated or if you've dealt with some dysfunction or abuse, those things you want to work on healing on your own and not necessarily present them in any type of relationship in the future. Individuals sometimes had a different type of relational modeling in regards to that's what they were exposed to. And they think that this is how you establish new relationships, but it's not. That's a good way to sabotage your future relationships.
Oh, thank you for that. I love that perspective because I know that what we focus on grows. So even if we're saying no, I don't want this to happen again, we're just reactivating it into our experience. And you can't deactivate a thought. You can only focus on a different one. That's the only way. And the other thing that I wanted to say about that, which I really love that permission to not say every single detail. The older we get, the longer our story is, and it's just not necessary to bring that into something new. And it doesn't mean that you're lying. There's a healthy measure of privacy that is
Yes.
not manipulation, that is not being forthcoming. It's just that no longer serves you and it's not a part of your current experience or what you want. So you just don't even have to bring it up.
That's exactly right. You're right on point. There's no room for it. There's no payoff for that type of situation. So that's a really, really a good point. And again, it's a coping strategy for some individuals. They think that this is a better way to cope with what's happened in the past. So that particular component of the reintroduction, that's where one of the most payoffs is in the beginning, making sure that you're having a healthy introduction for yourself and giving yourself fair chance. And also, too, another area that I encourage individuals to pay attention to is how quickly you attach during the introduction phase. We like things to occur almost instantaneously. So we don't really have a lot of patience anymore. But you have to be careful when you're entering relationships or you're making a decision on whether or not you want to participate in a relationship. You want to make sure that you're not quickly attaching. You want to give yourself enough time to thoroughly introduce yourself, and you want to give other people enough time to do this here. So I call it quick attachment, something that occurs within the first 3 months. That's for some people, they tell me that's a lifetime. That's a long time. No, it's not. And the reason I say you want to allow yourself enough time is because I need to see you in all seasons. Typically, when a person is interested in a relationship, they're in a good space. They're in a good place in life. Usually their finances are okay. Mentally, they're stable. Physically, they're feeling good. And that's why they're seeking a relationship. Well, I need to see what happens when things change in your life. I need to see what happens when you're experiencing an illness. How do you respond? Do you take good care of yourself? I need to see what happens if you have a financial crisis. How do you handle? You have emotional intelligence here. Do you go from 0 to 10? Things don't go your
Mm-hmm.
way. I need to see if you're a good ally. If we're in certain situations around family or friends, how do you show up in certain situations? Well, I won't be able to see these things if I quickly attach to you. And quickly attaching means that I've established some type of emotional connection with you. So if I do that, I may not pay attention to other things that are taking place in the relational development that may end up causing me some type of emotional distress or harm down the road. I've worked with individuals who have got into legal contracts together, signing leases to live together within a few weeks of knowing each other. I've had couples who were out and got married and come back and tell me they're husband and wife within weeks of knowing each other.
Wow.
Had them start families within weeks of knowing each other. And then find out later on that I don't know you. Who are you? We're talking serious things they're finding out, that maybe there are other children that were not introduced at the beginning, or maybe there were financial issues that were not introduced, things that they were not aware of early on, but there's an emotional connection now. So it's like, well, what do we do now? How do I handle this? Because I did not sign up for this in the beginning.
Right, for sure. Now, how does that piece though interact um with the giving of too much information at the beginning? So you say, we find out there's other children, we find out there's a financial situation. So in the introduction phase, we're not leading in with, just in case you're questioned on your way out, here are the answers to all of the Wendy Harrop trivia. But how do we then, as we continue in relationship, share elements about our story, about our lifestyle, about our experience that feels like a natural progression in finding information out, like a trickling, instead without the other person. I mean, now I'm just going to every Hallmark movie I've ever seen, right? So where the person feels like they were betrayed because you didn't tell them everything on your first date, but it's inappropriate to tell everything on your first date. So how are we supposed to do this?
Well, if I'm patient enough, a lot of these things will be discovered as we go along. If I don't rush and marry you within a few weeks, I'll have time to see whether or not these kids pop out. But if we're quickly attaching, I may not have enough time. But as the relationship evolves, we're going to continue to talk. You will have plenty of time to introduce those components. But I don't need to tell you everything about me until I can at least assess whether or not you are willing and able to consider these 3 deal breakers. I don't
Yeah.
need to disclose that to you because you may not be able to meet these needs for me. So then I have to make a decision to pull away from this relationship. So when you're going into relationships, you have to understand they're all teachable moments. They're all learning experiences. There is a component of risk that you're taking in all relationships because we're people. We have the opportunity to change our minds and make choices. And that's for all parties. That means I have the ability to change my mind and make a choice. And so does the other person. So you have to be mature about going into relationships and allow that type of space for both parties. So as I'm introducing myself, I'm getting to know whether or not you're a good fit. Well, if you are, then I'm going to be more comfortable disclosing certain information to you. So you don't have to know everything about me in the first 3 months. I haven't chosen you yet. We're just introducing ourselves. You don't need to know what all of my plans are yet, because I don't know if you're going to break into these deals. I'll give you an example. If you're a person who's more affectionate, that likes attention, that enjoys spending time with your partner, maybe a person that's very clingy or loving and affectionate here. Well, you want to make sure that you're with somebody that's available. I don't need to tell you all of my plans if I don't have access to you. You haven't responded to
Right.
me in 2 days. Okay. I need to start taking note of this here. Well, you haven't responded, maybe because of your work or something to that effect. If you're a person that's really into health and fitness, and I'm not, I need to know this here. You go to the gym 3 or 4 days a week. I go 3 or 4 times a month. I need to take note of these things and see, is this something that will work for me? Maybe not. Maybe not. Because that might not meet my emotional need. I need you around more often. And I'm watching as this relationship progresses that your lifestyle may not fit what I want. So all I'm doing is introducing myself. You're a great companion. We have great conversations. We have a lot in common, but I'm still assessing this because
Mhm.
I am going to be making an investment. There's no expiration dates, and I want to protect my investment. So I'd like to continue this introduction process. Let's see if we have more things in common as we go along. Let's see how you show up, maybe during certain seasons, holidays or other times of the year to see whether or not we're compatible. So I encourage couples, family members, and friends to enjoy the introduction. Do not take this on like it's an interview. You're not interviewing anybody. You are introducing yourself. And so this is just a one strategy for maybe preventing finding yourself in a dysfunctional relationship, but it's just a tool to help you navigate something that's more in tune to what your expectations are moving forward.
Mm. Oh, it's so good. It just seems so queenly, right? Just, I'm going to take my, now I'm shifting from my mom. Now I'll shift to me.
Okay.
I love this idea of experiencing a very long introduction. I am I am divorced and I don't even know like what I'm supposed to call it. Am I single? I don't know I have not been single ever.
Hey,
Ever.
okay. I
Ever.
can
I've
relate to
never
you.
been single. And
I
now
can relate.
I'm
Me too. I was married most of my life and 30 years of my life.
yeah.
So I've only been single, what, less than a decade. This is new for me too.
Mhm.
I
I
definitely
love that we get
can.
to own it. I love that we get to, like you said, not interview, but we're investigating and we're not just checking a box. It's not, I don't intend on dating one person and then that's going to be my next husband.
Yes,
Ugh, that
yes.
makes me not want to date anybody. And I don't want it to be like
I
that.
talk about that too, and about how things have changed. I share about, and I'm a kid in the '60s. And so I tell this to my kids all the time, and even to some of my clients about our dating experience. There was a thing called courting. That's what it
Right.
is. It's just a long, extended introduction. That's what it was. It's really what I'm introducing now, but our grandparents and our parents, that was their relational experience back then. But even for me as a little girl, I literally thought that at some point there was a Prince Charming out there just waiting for
Mhm.
me. Just believe that I was compatible with one person.
Right.
That's it. And we're just going to
Right.
fly off into the sunset and just live this miraculous life. Yeah. So I share at the time that there was only 3 billion people in the world during this time. We had like 8 billion people. So we have so many new individuals that we're compatible with.
Right.
You're not compatible with just one person. Out of 8 billion people, you're compatible with hundreds and thousands of people. Think like you, have the same desires in life as you, the same passion, the same goals as you. There's plenty of people out there.
Right. Well, that soulmate that we feel like we're searching for that is elusive, that's us.
Yes.
We are the one person that we are compatible with. We are that one. And
Mhm.
so, like you said, knowing ourselves, knowing what's important to us, knowing what was important to us and how that has shifted
Mhm.
and what that looks like now, and that that is okay, and
Yes.
that of course it's okay because we're in charge. We get to decide. We've already found our soulmate in us. Now
Yes.
we're just having relationships. We're inviting other people to share this beautiful life that we've created for ourselves,
Mhm.
and inviting another person or 10 that have also created beautiful lives for themselves
Yes. Yes.
into this joint, beautiful experience with us.
Exactly. And there are multiple strategies for establishing relationships. This is just one. And I want people to know that there are multiple strategies. So you kind of, pick and choose what works for you. But when it comes to, again, building relationships, we have to kind of be aware of, the climate that we live in. Things have changed. The way we access people now it's completely different. In my era, growing up, we didn't have access to people the way that we do now. You didn't know you would even meet a new person in weeks. It just depends on your social circle and your lifestyle. So
Mm.
now we can meet new people at the push of a few buttons on our devices. We're
Right.
exposed to individuals here. That's new. Not everybody is accustomed to knowing how to handle that type of access either. And that's why you have to have strategies when you're involved in your relationship. And I say this all the time. This is an old joke when I talk about relationships. In our era, we had a lot more leverage in our relationships here when it comes to consequences for breaking deals. You can send your spouse to the doghouse, or if it's a woman with a wife or something, maybe you could, limit her credit card spending or something to that effect. These are some of the things that we use as gauges to kind of control behaviors in the relationship. Now that we think about it now, they're laughable, but they work back then. Relationships sustained. People would stay together just based off of those consequences. Well, now we live in a world where you have so many options,
Mm.
to live life and to enjoy life. We have so many things that can distract you from a relational experience. So you have to be creative. You have to have a strategy, especially when it comes to the wants, how you want to live. I said, if I'm use this term Otis, he's my therapeutic partner, not in life. I don't even know anybody named Otis. Otis was my guy, and Otis was not necessarily behaving the way that he needed to in a relationship. I could send Otis to the doghouse. Hey, Otis, no, you need to take time out to think about your behaviors by yourself. You think you're ready to change, then you come on in and we can talk about it. You can't send Otis to the doghouse, not today.
Mhm.
Otis has a smartphone and a tablet. Otis may be on a profile page while he's in the doghouse,
Mhm.
or he'd be on Instagram, liking photos, meeting new people, doing all kinds of things to where he's happy to be in a doghouse.
Right. Without all of this going
Uh,
on.
yes, things have changed. I don't have that type of leverage anymore.
Mm.
I can't use that strategy. It doesn't work. No, I also need to pay attention to Otis. Sending him to the doghouse. What does this do to him? I gotta change that perspective too because he's got deal breakers now. Mm,
Mm.
yes. Yes. Now he's discovering these new deal breakers because he's learning more about his options in life. Mhm. So now the deal breakers are starting to become more pronounced. Hey, you know what? I'm not getting my emotional needs met either. Lynda, while he's in a doghouse, he's thinking about his needs. Hey, you haven't been celebrating me either. I'm getting a whole lot of attention over here on Snapchat and Instagram. They love me here. You
Mhm.
haven't even noticed. I've got at least 27 likes already. Oldest is thinking, I really don't care for this lifestyle either. Wait,
Well,
I don't like this. I gotta go to the doghouse when we have conflict. I didn't sign up for this. I'm thinking about my deal breakers too. I haven't liked the last 3 meals you cooked for me either. The movies that you watch, tired of watching Lifetime television with you. I don't really care for this lifestyle either. That's his wants and the interests. We don't have anything in common. So you have to be strategic and you have to consider both parties. If it's a family, you have to consider all parties. Everybody has a deal breaker.
I'm so grateful for your work. I'm grateful for the book. I'm grateful for the tools that you're imparting on people that perhaps have long thought that they didn't have an option. It's such a freeing piece of information to realize that we have agency, that you have agency, that Otis has agency, that your kids have agency. Everybody gets to decide what is best for them and then how we can interact in relationship where everybody's needs are being met from themselves and the ones that require 2 or more people to create. And then also the permission to complete.
And also, too, you mentioned something about families and taking agency. Again, even with blended families, this is a good tool. Sometimes there's not a proper introduction when you're blending families. So this is a good tool to allow everyone that's going to be a part of the new family experience to interview each other so that they can communicate each other's deal breakers so that you could have some basis for customizing a new quality of life for all parties that are involved.
Sure. And this is something that has to be revisited all the time.
Yes, you can utilize
Quarterly.
tool as often as necessary.
Because we're growing and expanding and having new experiences. And you can't just look back at the vows on your wedding day and think 25 years later that it was enough that you said I was beautiful.
That's
Like,
right.
I'm going to need to hear that more often. Otherwise, when I hear it from the people on Instagram, I'm going to like them more.
You got that right. You got that right.
Yeah. So it's just such great work. I have loved this conversation. Thank you so much. Lynda, tell everybody where they can find and follow you, how they can get their hands on the book, all the good things.
Okay, well, you can go straight to my website. You can reach me at info.lindakcash.com. That's LYNDA cash.com. There's my the books on the website and a little information about me as well. The book is also on Amazon, and you can also purchase it from Barnes & Noble. Again, it's called Reintroduce Yourself Using the 3 Relational Deal Breakers by Lynda K. Cash.
Perfect. Well, we will link everything down in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time, Lynda. This has been amazing.
Thank you so very much, Wendy, for having me. This has been fantastic.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. As always, any links or notes mentioned can be found at phineaswrighthouse.com in the podcast section of our site or in the show notes below. And if you haven't connected with me personally, come find me on Instagram at Phineas Wrighthouse and let me know you listened to this episode. I'd love to get to know you. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I know your days are full, and I'm really grateful that you chose to spend some of your precious time right here. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of these delightful conversations. I'll see you next week.